Hello class, and welcome to this u.n.squadron SNES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and this is a fantastic arcade to SNES port from Capcom here in u.n.squadron. Fantastic visuals, fantastic soundtrack, the controls are nice and tight, and yeah, it's just one of the best side-scrolling shooters released in the late 80s, early 90s. This being a arcade to SNES port, you can expect a healthy level of difficulty. In terms of difficulty, I'm going to go ahead and give u.n.squadron for the SNES an 8 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to writing a threatening letter to the developer, in this case Capcom as mentioned. Fluff's going to come in a little bit later and talk about the port from the arcade version, some of the differences between this and that version. Also going to talk about the source material on which this game was adapted from. Some of Capcom's best games in the late 80s came from adapted source material. If you ask me, I give you Little Nemo the Dream Master as Exhibit A, but I digress. Very difficult game. We've got all the tips you need to survive this one. We've got a pilot comparison on the other side of the intro. There's 3 pilots to choose from. They all vary slightly. We'll cover that. Blaze has your plane and items overviews, and Gary's got your boss beaters, all your tips for taking down the bosses in this very challenging game, which are typically the most challenging parts of this game. So let's run that intro and get into this u.n.squadron SNES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Before we get into the game, let's check out the options here in u.n.squadron. You can change the button configuration. I recommend the default. We'll be covering that in the controls in just a second. You can also change the difficulty between easy, normal, and hard. If you change it to hard, that ratchets it up to probably a 10 out of 10, and there's no appreciable difference in terms of the ending. So I recommend normal. I'm assuming that's what you're going to be playing this on. That's what we're going to be playing it on. This gives you the best, I think, experience of the game with a lot of challenge, that 8 out of 10 that I quoted earlier. And you have 3 different pilots you could choose from, so with an overview on that.
It's time to play Getting to Know Your u.n.squadron pilots. Each pilot is meant to excel in one area over the others while having some trade-offs in return. Before I compare our pilots, let me point out that all 3 have the same amount of health, or specifically take 7 bullets regardless of difficulty level before they'll die. That is assuming they've had their custom time required to recover in between shots. Once the recovery time has elapsed, they'll be able to take another shot, albeit with less health showing. Also worth mentioning is not all damage is equal. Running into an obstacle like another plane is worth the equivalent of 2 bullets, and certain enemy weapons deal more damage than the single bullet as well. Now let's compare our pilots. Shin, born in Tokyo, Japan. As Fluff will mention, Shin is the main protagonist of the source material this game is based on. When Shin takes damage, it takes him 5 seconds to recover before he can take another hit without dying. While all pilots require different amounts of power-ups to level up their main gun, the Vulcan Cannon, Shin's special ability, if you will, is that he requires the least, enabling him to level up his gun at a faster rate than his peers, consequently making it more powerful and spread wider sooner. As such, veterans of this game, as well as anyone who believes the best defense is a good offense, will swear by Shin Kazama. Mickey Skyman, or Simon. Born in San Francisco, USA, and as an aside, not only is that not an American name, that's not even an Earth name. Not a single person on this planet spells their last name S-C-Y-M-O-N, but I digress. Like Shin, Mickey takes 5 seconds to recover after being hit, and his Vulcan Cannon upgrade points are midway between Shin's and Greg's. Mickey has the most nebulous special ability / perk in the game. The manual simply and cryptically states Mickey is capable of handling the most special weapons, so you might assume he either starts out with more special weapons than his peers, or has access to additional special weapons per plane that the other pilots don't, but That's not true. The in-game description that Mickey is known for his ability to use many weapons simultaneously is a bald-faced lie, as Announcer Guy tried many combinations of obvious choices for using 2 special weapons at once, and that's not a thing. It turns out that Mickey gets marginally more of a refill than the other pilots in-game when players find the admittedly rare weapons rack item. Anecdotally, his special weapons do an inconsequential amount of extra damage than his peers, but Announcer Guy was unable to confirm this. Strictly speaking, I'm not ranking our choices like I normally do in these Getting to Know Your segments, but choosing Mickey makes as much sense as his last name. It's stupid. Last but not least is Greg Gates, born in Copenhagen, Denmark. By the way, how does the Danish guy have more of an American name than the American? Greg requires the most power-ups to level up his Vulcan cannon each step, so much so that it may be impossible to reach the max level with him. Though, as an aside, it's difficult to reach the max with any of the pilots, even Shin. Still, this sizable handicap for Greg is offset by the fact that he can recover from damage 2 seconds faster than his peers, which makes a huge appreciable difference. If you expect to take damage in this game where taking damage is a fact of life, Greg is your man and will keep you alive in situations where Shin or Mickey can't. This has been Getting to Know Your UN Squadron Pilots. For seasoned veterans who probably don't need this class, go with Shin Kazama, but we recommend Greg Gates for newcomers as well as anyone who agrees this game is the 8 out of 10 the professor gave it, if not higher, because of Greg's ability to stay alive in the tightest of spots in this very difficult scrolling shooter. Whatever you do, just don't pick Mickey Simon. Man, that name makes me angry. Capcom really did the Americans dirty on this one, let me tell you. I don't know what they were thinking. Did Capcom get together and say, we hate America. Let's make the American the worst pilot out of the bunch. I don't know.
Thank you, Announcer Guy. We are indeed going with Greg Gates because his period of vulnerability is much shorter than the other pilots, so that can really make the difference. So only one mission to choose from here at the start, so we're going to go with the first mission. Only one plane to choose from as well. I always called this guy Pops when I was a kid playing this game. I always like to think he has a bit of a familial relationship with our pilot. Kind of like a dad, but not really. Kind of like Q in the James Bond movies back when he was played by Desmond Llewellyn. But I digress. I recommend taking the cluster shot for 3,000. Spending all our money, don't worry, we'll get it back, and Blaze is going to cover the weapons just a moment. But let's take a look now at the controls for UN Squadron. Very simple, honestly, for an SNES game. If you swapped out the switch active weapon from X to select, you could fit these controls on an NES controller. But yeah, fire your main weapon, your main gun, that Vulcan cannon with Y, and then just tap B when you want to use that special weapon, which you can toggle with X. By the way, anytime we don't pick up a hidden item in this run, we'll be showing you a pop-up just to show you where it is. As we take a look now at the Briggs notes in this UN Squadron SNES walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. First, ABF, always be firing. I like to, while you can, tap Y for every shot. I like to just hold down that button. You'll get about 10 shots off, and then you'll have to tap it again and hold it down again. But that's the most efficient way to essentially have turbo fire in this game. Secondly, prioritize the orange ships, the orange planes, like these helicopters. When you take out the last one in a group, you will get a power upgrade, which goes to improving the gun on your plane, upgrading that, making it wider and more powerful. Number 3, save up your money for the best plane. Blaze will talk about that. And lastly, use Gary's boss beater. Speaking of which, let's go to him for the first time today. Gary.
It's Scary Gary's boss beater. The Mega Tank, the first boss here in UN Squadron. Let me preface this by saying that the strategy with all these bosses should always involve the Mega Crush. You should save this for the boss at the end of the stage, and specifically at a time when the most targets are on the screen, or when you're about to take damage or even be killed, because you can use that to enjoy 3 seconds of invincibility. Plus it does a lot of damage. But that aside, with the Mega Tank, this first boss, you want to aim at the sweet spot for this boss, that blue button. just positioning yourself like we show, and he takes half the damage if you hit him there. Just avoid the missile barrage and that small missile or two which fly around. Repeat this, you'll take him down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Very effective. Make our money at the end of every mission. They'll pay you back for any weapons you did not use. So we're going to move on to the enemy Air Force, and because, like I just said, you make all your money back from any weapons you don't take with you, or you don't use, better said, at the end of the mission, there's no reason not to take them with you. Let's go to Blaze now for a bit of an overview on the different weapons we can take here in UN Squadron.
It's Blaze's best here in Item Sky. Alright, there are 11 special weapons you can take with you here in UN Squadron if you got the cash and if your plane can handle them. First, I'm going to start off with the worst to best, so the C-tier weapons. These you can generally avoid, with maybe one or two exceptions. The bombs first. Gary has one instance where, yeah, these are useful, but this is just a weak explosive, drops straight down. And, yeah, you get a whole bunch of these, 50, generally speaking. Note that I should mention, different planes, certainly the best plane allows you to carry more of a lot of these, so the price will vary depending on how many you can carry. We also have the Falcon. This drops a missile down and then it fires straight ahead. Not a lot of damage. And then the sailing missiles. This is great for hitting targets above your head. I know some people like to recommend this for a certain boss, but those people don't have Gary. Moving on to B tier, these are slightly better, recommended in some cases. The Bullpup, this fires 5 missiles which spread out. If you hit a boss with this right up on them, this does a lot of damage, which is very concentrated, so don't discount the Bullpup completely. The Super Shell and the Thunder Laser are very similar in that they go through your targets, which is nice. You can hit a lot of targets, especially the Thunder Laser, which branches out above and below as well. And then the Gun Pod fires a very steady stream of bullets up and to the right, or I guess up and to the left, depending on which way you're flying, but yeah, for about 4 seconds.
Alright, thank you very much, Blaze. And very close to hitting level 3 with our gun, but let's go back to Gary for tips on the next boss.
Boss beaters. The stealth plane. You want to fire right at that gun, which fires out, obviously dodging with those quick reflexes when it fires shots off at you. And just avoid those bullet grenade spreads when they explode. Shooting them doesn't really help you out. They're going to explode regardless. And just don't be greedy. Prioritize dodging, not taking damage. Getting those shots in when you can, you'll take them down.
Thank you very much, Gary. And it should be noted that once you put in that last shot into the boss, even if there's still projectiles on the screen and you run into them, you're invincible once you put in that final killing blow. So we made most of our money back there for not having used pretty much anything except for the bombs for the most part. You guys chose the wrong team. Yes, they did, Greg Gates. That smile, too. Alright, so some of these will fly into our sphere right here, but yeah, no rush on the ones which are flying closer to our base until they get there, in which case, yeah, then you're kind of forced into it. But moving on to the ground carrier now, we're just going to go top to bottom. Not really any reason to do certain missions over others right now when we, again, aren't even close to being able to afford the best plane in the game. Which Blaze is going to talk about, compare those planes in just a moment, but yeah, part of the reason that you also want to, as we get kind of an orange missile launcher down there, so you can see, grab yourself the power upgrade right there. It's worth, honestly, burning, your cluster, or oftentimes your cluster, but whatever you got on you, whatever special weapons that you have, it's worth burning one of them outside of the Mega Crush, which it's generally a good idea to save for the bosses. And this is going to kill everything on the screen. We'll bring in Blaze to talk about that in a second as well. But yeah, there are a finite number, in case you didn't pick up on that, of these power-ups here in this game. Honestly, you can get to the very end of the game, even if you do a good job in picking up most of them. And yeah, assuming you have a plane which can account for the max level in this game. I mean, the best plane maxes out at 7, not to step on Blaze's toes, but yeah, you can pick up pretty much every single upgrade and still like barely get to level 7. So that's why you really want to make it a point to, even, you know, at the sake of sacrificing some health, taking some damage to pick up those power-ups in that case. But anyway, actually we're about to go to the next boss, so let's bring in Gary for tips on this one.
Boss beaters. All right, the ground carrier has a sweet spot between the two kind of missile launchers above that first area where the plane comes out. You want to have those bombs queued up when you're not using that Mega Crusher, the Mega Crush, and drop a bomb on that plane anytime it pops out. Otherwise, you just want to hit that missile bay when it pops up, avoiding the missiles when it launches them off at you, and the turret fire as well. If your gun is powered up enough, there's kind of a sweet spot where you can avoid taking damage from the missiles while still getting in the shots, because your spread is wide enough. But there you go. That's the strategy for the ground carrier.
Thank you, Gary. This one takes a while regardless of strategy, so let's go to Blaze for an overview on some of these hidden items that we've been picking up and or showing you the locations of here in UN Squadron.
Alright, let's talk the item pickups you'll find, or have to find, here in UN Squadron. First, we have the orange and blue power-ups, which will add 1 and 3, respectively, to your power total, so you can upgrade your base gun, that Vulcan cannon. Everything else is hidden. You have to shoot on the right area of the screen, either with your Vulcan cannon or a special weapon, to reveal one of these, and then pick it up. So first we have the fuel tank. This partially refills your health. They call it fuel, it's clearly health. Then we have the Yashichi. Capcom loves this one. This totally refills your health. And then moving on, the star is worth $5 grand. Not that much in the grand scheme of things. We have the mech, which looks like part of a plane, kind of. This clears the screen of all enemies. And we have the weapons rack. This will partially refill your special weapons, give you back some more clusters, bombs, not necessarily the Mega Crush, but most everything else that you got on you right there. And then the unicorn. This grants you 3 free hits of a shield here in UN Squadron. Very important, very rare, but there you go. Many of the hidden items, or all of the hidden items, here in UN Squadron. Good luck finding them.
All right, thank you very much, Blaze. Moving on to the Forest Fortress now. But yes, part of the reason that, you know, ABF was the first Briggs note, obviously, because it's a bullet hell type game. There's lots of planes you need to shoot down, especially before they get shots off on you, but also to trigger and uncover a lot of the hidden items which you can find scattered around every stage. So, but still, yeah, the number one priority is always just staying alive and getting as many of those gun upgrades as possible. You could see that spread makes a huge difference, level 4 versus level 1. And the more you can add to that, the much easier this game becomes. So it's never really easy, but it does become slightly more manageable. By the way, we got some missile launchers on the ground here. You can only take out the top row. I suppose if you have a wide enough gun, but yeah, as Greg Gates, that's not really an option for us. Yeah, I should mention all this is with the assumption that you're playing as Greg, with all these power-ups, these pickups. If you're playing as Shin, you'll get there a lot faster, admittedly, but yeah, I like a good defense. Anyway, next boss, Gary.
Boss beaters. Alright, the Forest Fortress. Another boss where if your gun's leveled up enough, like we have it right here, there's a sweet spot where you can hover just above the shots, staying kind of level right above them while still dealing damage to those turrets. But yeah, just avoid those shots, stay in the most open areas of the screen when they present themselves, and most importantly, don't miss the Yashichi, which is right above that rightmost turret to top off your health or your fuel as necessary midway through this boss battle. Good luck.
Yeah, this one does take a little while to clear everything out. There's a hidden Yashichi above this right turret, by the way. But yes, while we are doing this, going back and forth, let's bring in Fluff for our first Fluff fact about UN Squadron, get some context about this game.
UN Squadron is a 1991 SNES port of a 1989 side-scrolling arcade shooter from Capcom. Known as Area 88 upon its initial Japanese release, the game is based on a manga series of the same name, which tells the story of Shin, one of the pilots available for selection in this game, and its experiences at the mercenary Air Force base called Area 88. The backstory of the manga goes that Shin is tricked into signing a contract with Area 88 and resolves to earn the $1.5 million he needs to terminate his contract early, rather than serving the mandatory 3-year term and earn his freedom to return home. As the head of his class at his former aviation school, Shin quickly climbs the ranks to become the most decorated pilot at Area 88, but en route to his goal, he begins to question his situation there, wondering if he fights for survival or simply for the excitement of the battle and the kill, like his peers, which include the other playable characters in this game in Mickey and Greg, amongst others. The series ran for 23 volumes between 1979 to 1986, with each volume chronicling different missions of Shin, and it was critically acclaimed for its character development, first-person storytelling, and balance of action, tragedy, comedy, and romance. I'm not a manga cat, Professor, but dang it if that description doesn't make me want to read them myself.
Did you see that? Wiped them all out. Love Greg. Thanks, Fluff. Yeah, I agree. And the SNES version doesn't really get into the storytelling on that level, but yeah, still an excellent game. But yeah, that does sound really cool. We're going to go on, take on the Battleship now at the bottom. Our crappy Crusader plane is coming along nicely. Got it up to level 4. And those levels carry over, by the way, between different planes. So if we, assuming the plane can take level 4. Some planes max out a little bit earlier, as Blaze will explain once we get another minute here of little downtime. But yeah, these little boats firing the missiles up there, they do a little cluster and then they take a short little break. Then you can move right to left and get a shot in from behind there. Hate the planes, hate the ships, hate anything which comes in from behind us in this game, you know? As long as we can keep everyone in front of us, then we're in good shape, because, yeah, not a lot of options offensively for us for dealing with enemies who sneak up behind us in this game. Another great track here in this mission. You could hear a lot of these tracks sounding right at home in, say, like a Mega Man X game. Which, shout out to the Mega Man X classes we've done here on this channel. Can we shout out our own classes? I'm not sure, but yeah, gotten a lot of good feedback on those games, but got a lot of good feedback on Gary. So let's go back to him once again for tips on the Battleship Boss.
Boss beater. Right, the Battleship strategy, not too different from the Forest Fortress boss, honestly. It's the same kind of setup. Lots of things firing at you. You just want to come in, level with them. You can find a sweet spot just above their shots where you can get hits in on them. But yeah, just avoid those shots. Don't get greedy. Look for those open spaces. And yeah, get most of your shots in. Once you reach the other side, you turn around and come in for another pass. Take out as many of those cannons as possible. Eventually, a lot more room to maneuver, and you'll take them down.
Yeah, well, we got some downtime and we got some cash burning a hole in our pockets, hopefully not too quickly. Let's finally go to Blaze for an overview on the planes here in UN Squadron.
Alright, let's cover the planes you can get here in UN Squadron, beginning with the F8E Crusader. This is the starter plane, it's free. The max power level on this is 5. The speed class maxes out at C, and you can see the loadout potential, those 3 weapons right there. Moving on, the first plane you can actually purchase, F20, Tiger Shark for 250 grand. Same max power level at 5. The speed class, a little bit faster, a little more nimble, more responsive. Speed class at B, and you can see the loadout. You can weapons you can take with you for the Tiger Shark. Next, the F14D for 300 grand. Same max level of 5, but it's the fastest plane in the game, most responsive. Not a lot of weapons you can carry on that plane, but certainly good for avoiding damage. Then you have the A-10A Thunderbolt for 50 grand more at 350. This one's a bit of an odd duck out of the group. It maxes out at power level 3, but you get an extra gun, and that extra gun fires down diagonally, so
Great for taking out ground targets. It's also the slowest plane with that speed class of D, and you can see the weapons it can take with you as well. The YF-23 Stealth Ray for 500 grand. This is the first one which goes above that initial max level of 6. I should mention as an aside, you can only get that max level of 6 once you get this plane, so it's not like any pickups you've already been picking up once you've been at 5 for a while will retroactively apply to this plane, unfortunately. Just want to mention that. Speed Class B, decent loadout in terms of weapons, and then the plane of the game, the F-200 Efreet. Professor recommended it for good reason. Sets you back $1 million, but it's the only plane which gets you that max power of 7 possible. Speed Class of B. Most importantly, you can equip all weapons with this ship, and you get an extra loadout for a lot of these. The Mega Crush being the key weapon right there. It's the only plane in the game which allows you to carry an extra Mega Crush, which very important in these final missions here in UN Squadron.
Thank you, Blaze. Yeah, it's all about that F-200, saving up for that one. The only one which can reach that max level of 7 on that Vulcan cannon, which, yeah, admittedly not as big of an issue if you're playing as Greg Gates, because, yeah, we're going to be hard-pressed to get there, but the key is to buy it before you hit these last 3 missions, like the base missions on the raid. So in the meantime, first we're going to do one of these convoy missions. These are hit and runs, very simple, not worth a lot of money, only 20 grand, but you can do these indefinitely. This is the one mission you can do time and time again to make any money that you need. And the strategy is don't waste any weapons on this, just go down low as soon as you clear that first raised rock, and then pull back and to the right when you're coming in from the right, and just go down and fire away. Don't be afraid to take damage, because you can knock this out. If you do it efficiently, you can take them all out in 2 passes at most. As you'll see, we'll be doing quite a few of these. Strictly speaking, I think that guy's name was Commander Saki, and this guy's name is McCoy, but he'll always be Pops to me. So you don't have to waste your time with weapons. Just come in right behind that rock right there on either side. Don't be afraid to take a little bit of damage right there, because, yeah, you're not going to take enough for it to be an issue. Main thing is just make sure you don't get hit by the rock, and then take another hit on part of the convoy, and then obviously lose a life. But yeah, and then you get a little bit of extra cash, maybe a few $100 for taking down, I think, like one of the antennas or something down there as part of the convoy. So you make 20,000 and a little bit of change, but we're going to move on to these other 2 missions over here on the left. Let's do the nuclear submarine, the Seavet. This one's worth quite a bit more money than those hit and runs are, so we'll do these last 2 and then decide how many of those hit and runs we have yet to do to hit that $1 million mark. It occurs to me, if you were playing as Shin, it would be kind of messed up if we spent $1 million on that plane. He's like, I was 2/3 the way to my goal of buying my freedom, and you're blowing all of it on this plane, but it's one heck of a plane class. Alright, so this mission is pretty much all boss from the start, so let's go to Gary right now for tips on the Seavet.
Boss beaters. Alright, the Seavet, most of the time you want to be in that bottom left corner of the screen. Just have to be wary of that bomb which the Seavet fires out, because when it explodes, there's a pretty decent radius, and it does a good clip of damage as well. Just don't get greedy, you want to be trapped down there with that one annoying little plane flying around, getting those shots off, so just don't be greedy. That's the spot, though. Get those shots in when you get openings. Take them down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, the annoying thing about this and the other air mission, which we have, the other where we're fighting against another squad of planes, is that there are no power-ups to be found in these missions. These are proper missions, but yeah, we don't. Oh, that was a gimme right there. We'll take that. Oh, it's because it was already going down. There we go. Yeah, so no opportunities. We're stuck in with our power level where it's at right now, unfortunately, for the foreseeable future, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. What's he got to say this? You don't mess with the best. I love it. Greg was always my guy. Alright, so we are going now to the aerial combat squadron called Wolfpack. Not to be confused with Star Wolf. By the way, check out our Star Fox 64 class we did a couple months back. Note the clouds here in the foreground, kind of masking the enemies in some cases, making it a little bit more difficult to see. You might want to prioritize taking out these green planes as quickly as possible. They take, with level 4 gun, probably about 4 or 5 shots. The closer you can get to their tails to get those shots in, the better. I guess only 3 shots right there, but yeah, might want to use a cluster. In just a moment here, it's about to get a little hectic. I don't mind burning a cluster. Let's see, yeah, they're trying to paint us into a corner here. Gary?
Boss beaters. I've used this phrase quite a few times, but very applicable on the mini stealth planes. Don't be greedy. Focus on them when they're in the front or the right portion of the screen, because when you get behind them, they love to fire those little bomb fields right there, and it's dangerous to react in time, difficult to react in time, especially if you're on the left corner, the left third of the screen with those enemies, and you don't have a lot of room to react and time to react. So yeah, just Mega Crush will do a lot of damage to these guys, so hopefully you've got it, but otherwise you can use some clusters, whatever you got left over. Don't get greedy, take them down.
Mercenary against mercenary, but we had right on our side. I don't know. I mean, if the bad guys were paying us more, wouldn't we just jump over there? Anyway, so now we are at, let me take a look at our funds. We're at 857,000, so probably need to do about, I'd say, 7 of these hit and runs, give or take, maybe 8. I don't know, it depends how much money we're making as a little bonus from the little antenna or satellite thing or whatever they've got between the trucks down here. Probably want to do a couple more on top of that, actually, so that we can actually afford some special weapons after we buy the plane, which can accommodate all the different special weapons. And then we'll just kind of choose a custom layout for each mission for these final few. But anyway, yeah, while we got some downtime, just running and gunning on these convoys, let's go to Fluff for another Fluff fact about u.n.squadron.
I mentioned earlier how we're playing the SNES port of the arcade game, which preceded it only by a couple of years. The two versions are similar with some exceptions. Like in the arcade version, the missions advance linearly, versus you have your pick from a limited number of options on the console version. There's also additional missions in this version, like the special optional missions of destroying the truck convoy. Certain planes were also tied to different characters in the arcade version, whereas in this version you have access to all of the planes regardless of your pilot, assuming you've got the cash. The planes themselves are also largely based on planes from real life. Like the coveted in-game F-200 Efreet is modeled after the Soviet fighter Mikoyan MiG-31, known colloquially as the MiG.
Thank you, Fluff, and while we're earning a bit more scratch, let's go to Blaze for the rest of the weapons, the best weapons here in u.n.squadron.
Moving on, we have the A tier. Very useful weapons in certain situations, especially late in the game. The napalm, this drops a very powerful bomb, which creates a lingering layer of fire on the ground. Great for clearing out ground targets of all types of defensive abilities. Very useful against one boss or two bosses, as Gary's going to cover. And then the Phoenix missiles, extremely important. These can hunt down your targets with heat-seeking capabilities, so don't discount these for taking down enemies who love to fly in behind you. And then finally, the best of the best, the S tier. This is reserved for the cluster. This is your break glass type move when you get surrounded by lots of projectiles or planes. This clears out all weak targets around you with that circle of flames. And then finally, the Mega Crush. Very powerful.
In addition to doing a lot of damage, this grants you 3 seconds of invincibility as soon as you tap that button to use it. So keep that in mind. Another break glass in case of an emergency weapon right there. But there you go, the weapons of UN Squadron.
Hitting away is my style. We know. You've told us the last 10 times, Greg. All right, this should do it. We can now afford ourselves the F200. As I mentioned, we're going to run a couple more of these, but we can enjoy the slightly faster handling of the Efreet now. All the money. That's got to hurt. We can't afford anything else right now. Not even some lowly bombs. Yeah, that's got to just have one quick moment of pause right there when you're about to send that check for $1 million. Give that to Pops. I guess that's how that works. I don't know. Pops is eating good tonight. That's all I can say. He's taking out Mrs. Pops. 4-star restaurant. 3-star? What's the best star? I don't know. Again, not a professor of words, not a professor of food, but we have the Efreet. And we got a little bit more time to kill before we move on to the next mission, so just gonna earn a little bit more money so we can stock up our Efreet. So Fluff, you got a quick one for us?
Capcom's director at the time, Yoshiki Akamoto, explained that the company decided to develop a game based on the characters and concept of Area 88 during a time at which the company was trying to branch out from their original characters and concepts in order to broaden their reach and appeal. 1989's Capcom developed Willow was another example of a game created at the same time as part of that strategy.
Thank you, Fluff, and I mentioned Little Nemo the Dream Master earlier. That was a little too quick, actually. I think we should do one more. I recommend having about 60 grand to spend once you buy yourself the Efreet and get your loadout ready for, admittedly, the most difficult 3 stages are the last 3 coming up, as you'd expect. But yeah, there is a marked difference once you unlock these further 2 over here versus everything else we've come across. So let's just do one last run here and start thinking about the weapons we want to prioritize with our 60 grand. Shade over 60 grand. So after we complete this next mission, we'll have money will be no option moving forward. We can and probably should load up on virtually every weapon in the game, because maybe not for the penultimate stage, but certainly for the last stage. There's just so much going on in that level, but you do sort of get into that territory where you're weighing having to hit that X button again and again and again. Just cycling through all the many weapons which you brought with you. Yeah, let's stick with the F200. Don't even have to ask me at this point, Pops. Recommend the cluster, the Phoenix for tracking, the napalm, the sailing missile, and then the Mega Crusher. The sailing is the one which hits above you. It can be useful for the boss that we have coming up. A lot of people call the boss of this stage the most difficult in the game, for good reason, but that reason being that they don't have access to Gary. He's got an excellent tip to share with us for taking down this boss with relative ease. But the napalm are nice. You can see, obviously, now that we've got the Efreet, not only can we carry more varieties of special weapons, but we can also now carry more quantities of the special weapons too, and we're paying for it as well, but you know, not a big deal. Not a bad idea to have the clusters queued up just to clear the immediate area when it gets a little heavy. As always, we want to save the megas for the boss, especially with this boss too. That temporary invincibility that we get is nice. You can thread that needle like so with that opening. This is an area where you might want to use a cluster. Gets a little crazy, and we finally hit that level 5 here in the third to last level. It also gets very, very hairy right here. Not a bad idea to burn probably a couple clusters, because, yeah, just a lot of planes flying around. Kind of shocking. I think this is the farthest I've ever played this stage without taking a hit. Always good when you save your best for the actual class run. That's what I say. They're recycling this track. That's alright, it's a good one. They do a little bit of that in this game. If you're gonna recycle a track, at least make it a good one. That's what I probably said that at least a couple times, but something else I've said many times, let's go back to Gary.
Boss beater. Alright, so while you can use your ceiling missiles on this boss, if you've got the appropriate ship for it, I much prefer to get in position to where your nose is just below that orb, not touching it, otherwise you will take some damage, and just move in that sweet spot with that boss. Your gun should have enough spread to be able to hit them at this point. Make sure you don't drift too far to the left, to that left panel, as that will cause damage to you. Otherwise, use your napalm whenever a ship on the bottom gets in position to fire off some flames at you in particular. Every now and then you might have to watch out for their heat-seeking missiles, but other than that, just fire away. If you keep it up, you'll take them down before too long. Don't forget you got that Mega Crush or two if you've got the right loadout. And yeah, use that invincibility to avoid the missiles, but stick to this strategy, take them down.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, a lot of people talk about the sailing missiles there for shooting above you, but yeah, as you can see, Gary's strategy, incredibly effective, getting in the right position and letting your Vulcan cannon do all the heavy lifting. Always get my target. All right, not the most inspired line right there, but that's all right. Moving on to the penultimate stage, the canyon. Not quite as difficult as that last stage, I think, overall. So now we can afford everything, but we're going to skip a couple, probably faster just to say what I recommend skipping, like the Falcon, the Bullpup, the bombs, and the sailing variety, which, again, shoots the missiles above you. Skip those. Everything else is pretty useful, honestly, in this stage. Clusters, usually, once again, the best default weapon to have queued up, because there's nothing like being able to clear out all the enemies from around you, all the immediate threats on demand. And we can save most of the rest of our arsenal for the boss themselves. See the $5,000 right there. We're not really hurting for the money at this point. Mind the bombs which these planes drop. Very easy to accidentally fly into them, and yeah, if you haven't gathered by now, all damage, or all projectiles that can damage you are not created equally in this game. And hitting one of their napalm bombs does quite a bit more damage, so, than just one of those little pea shooter bullets that go flying around the screen. Getting hit by a plane also does more damage than getting hit by a stray bullet, but here we go. Next boss, scary.
Boss beater. Alright, the giant jet. I like the gun pod, getting underneath it and then firing up and to the right to take out a lot of projectiles in some cases. Hitting that boss, certainly. Use that Mega Crush when you're starting to get trapped, when a lot of those missiles are coming at you. It can be difficult to avoid. It fires out so many of these, but yeah, the gun pod, very useful for getting a lot of shots in on this boss, but yeah. You can also use that cluster to clear out missiles should you need to. Hopefully you've got some stored up at this point, but repeat this strategy, take them down.
Good call, Gary. Key is just not to fall into the habit of, when you use one of your side weapons, I find that it can be a little distracting sometimes, like using that upwards, the gun turret right there, shooting diagonally up. It can be a little distracting as you're concentrating on when it's time to tap that button again, and then you end up taking more damage from other projectiles, or you're not firing your main weapon like you should. Look out, guys. Stopping my fire is like blowing out the sun. That's a pretty good line right there. I think that's his final line, so he saved his best for last. Not giving anything away, but yeah, there's obviously not one of those little shots at the end of the final stage. So speaking of the final stage, I recommend taking everything because we're going to use pretty much everything throughout the course of this final level. There are double the bosses, by which I mean there are 2 final bosses here in UN Squadron, so yeah, just having a lot of different kinds of ammunition to go ahead and burn on each of those bosses. It's a good idea, that's what I'm trying to say. You can go ahead and use the Phoenixes right now to clear any enemies in these tight spaces right here. Won't really need those too urgently for the boss. I do recommend holding on to your napalm in particular and your bombs, but especially the napalm. That's going to be extremely important for the final boss, as Gary's going to mention, so make sure you got plenty of those on hand. Another reason why the F200 is as important as it is, just so you can go ahead and have extra numbers in some of these important special weapons. Burn some bullpups too, not that they're especially useful for this portion. Love the shells that burn through. Good for dishing out decent amount of damage on the bosses. Gun pod's nice just for practically clearing out enemies above you. Kind of reminds me a little bit of our Gradius setup. Just a little bit, speaking of bullet hell type. That's a lot of... I think that's the best we're going to be able to do. I do not believe that there are 19 more, 18 now, worth of power-ups waiting for us, so... You're getting close now, to quote the Game Players tapes from my youth. Yeah, whatever these are, they're not too intimidating. Just these things that affix themselves to the ceilings and then slowly drop down to the floor and have a very limited explosion radius. The Phoenixes are very nice for cutting the path through this stage. Now we got a few rail guns here moving around. Same rule as for most targets in this game, kill them as quickly as possible. Grab yourself some fuel down there. Mind that. Like they call it fuel, but it's clearly your shield. Speaking of shield. Alright, time for the penultimate boss, Gary.
Boss beater. Alright, the gunship, we want to take advantage of the fact that it circles around the screen and be opportunistic and moving around in circles as well on the opposite side. So when that gunship's more on the bottom, we want to cross over on the top and vice versa. The only thing you really need to worry about is that stream of missiles which the gunship launches out. You can obviously use like a cluster or something to cut through there, but just be opportunistic with your timing when you cut across there to avoid those missiles and just fire away with your best shots, whatever you got at this point. Unload into them, and yeah, save your napalm, that's about all I'll say, but yeah, just go around in circles, take them down.
Thank you, Gary. That's the one drawback about coming in with every weapon in the game. You tend to panic when you're cycling through everything. All right, we burned our megas, so we'll see what Gary's got on tap for us for the final boss. Gary, take us home.
Boss beater. All right, the final boss here in UN Squadron. Throw in everything we have left at this point at this boss. Save your napalm until a little bit later in the fight, but we want to neuter as many of these turrets as quickly as possible, as you can use whatever you got that goes through targets. Note that it's got some guns which cannot be destroyed that are more in the middle of this, but note the panels you can attack, the turrets obviously. Eventually, you'll open up the bottom or top of this boss to access its weak spot, its vulnerable spot of that orb. That's when you want to fly over when you're in that position there, making the rounds, and drop some napalm in. If you have a full complement of napalm, you'll have no problem at this point taking them down. Just keep dropping those bombs, and congratulations, you have beaten a very difficult game in UN Squadron.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yes, anything which cuts through targets, like the lightning, very effective here. But yeah, not too bad comparatively. I think that last phase was worse. Bullets aren't moving too quickly right here, so you can certainly thread the needle, as I like to say. Nice if we could turn around with a bit more urgency here, but with just the one gun coming after us, that's alright, and they do give you that temporary invincibility, which is nice. Just trying to take out, alright, looking good, taking out the cover now. And now you can see why we wanted to save those napalms. Dropping these down into the gap, and whatever it hits, it's doing some damage right here, taking out these layers. So much safer than actually trying to put your plane down in that area right there, with the bullets coming at you as well on top of that. But there we go. That's a satisfying win right there. UN Squadron, extremely challenging side-scrolling shooter. 10 for 10, no lost lives, and we get 500,000 for the win right there. So we certainly made almost $2 million. So yeah, Shin would have been able to buy his freedom there. We don't get the idea that Area 88 is quite as nasty, quite as sinister as might have been presented in the manga. Just under 2 million. As they reimburse us for all those special weapons, slightly used special weapons. And then this is all autopilot from here, just cinematic, if you will. In case you're wondering if I'm controlling this, nope. And actually that looked like a bit of a gimme. It looked like he flew into a ship right there. Definitely flying straight through. I didn't know that was a possibility. I knew Greg was good, but didn't know you had that in you this entire time, Greg. And then Shin and Mickey come out first. Where on earth is Greg? Yeah, haven't seen him in like 10 missions worth of time. We've just been flying around, enjoying our planes, not contributing anything as far as I'm concerned. But in classic Capcom style, it's like the end of Bionic Commando. Where is the commander? We can't wait anymore. And yet, at the last second, flying out. He survived more missions where it looked like he was dead to rights than anybody. Chalk up one more for Mr. Greg Gates. Thought I'd bought the farm back there. Nice. Get some nice side shots of the planes here, and that was a long, hard fight. I can't wait to get home. Has it been 3 years already? Goodbye, UN Squadron. I don't know. I think they still own you. All of you. Keep thinking about what Fluff said earlier. Speaking of Fluff, let's bring him in for one final Fluff fact as it relates to the endings, the different difficulties. Fluff?
If you beat the game on hard mode with that continues, you'll get a little extra something on the ending screen, which is definitely not worth the effort. Like the professor mentioned at the top, playing this game on hard mode is likely a 10 on our difficulty scale, but if you really hate yourself and you want to go all Spinal Tap, let me introduce you to something called Gamer Mode. To access this level of difficulty above hard mode, for some reason, plug in a second controller, then on the options screen make sure game level is highlighted using controller 1. Then hold X and A on controller 2 while you press right until you land on the hidden gamer mode option. Exit out of the options menu and don't say I didn't warn you.
Very much agree, Fluff. It is definitely not worth it. Normal it's the perfect level of difficulty for a game like this, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, great work today, all my TAs. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to enroll in this class. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button too if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment. Are you familiar with this game? Have you played this game? Have you ever beaten it on hard or even the gamer mode, which Fluff just mentioned? I will be very impressed if that's the case. But yeah, that's our time for this week. There's a little bit of music that's going to play on the thank you for playing screen in just a moment. It kind of goes on for a while. Hide naked. And you. Way to bring a personal element into it, Capcom. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's kind of a jazzy track which plays here on the thank you for playing, and it kind of goes on for an awkward amount of time, but I still appreciate it, so we're going to let that play out before we run our outro. So thank you everyone for attending this class, and we'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Just feels completely out of character from the rest of the game, but I love it. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.